Hey everybody, welcome to Insight Tennis Tour Stroke Series. My name is Rick Oldroyd. I'm the president and founder of Insight Tennis, and today I want to talk to you a little bit more about the forehand. And I want to get, this will be kind of a follow-up to some of the other videos we've done on the forehand myth of the wrist. And we want to have some further clarification so that there's no misunderstanding what it is we're saying, so that you can understand very, very clearly what we're advocating, and more importantly, what we're not advocating. Now, if you've seen my video on the myth of the wrist, you know that I talk about this concept of that's out there of brushing vertically up the ball like this. So rotating my wrist. Now, I'm not saying there isn't wrist and arm rotation in the forehand. Of course there is, but it's a lot less than you probably think, and most of it happens, other than from the low to the high, after the ball is gone. And this is the part that's so deceptive. So just very quickly, what I want to clarify is a couple of things. First of all, what I'm advocating is that the wrist doesn't go vertical up the ball like this unless you're 5 feet from the net and you don't have a choice. You've just got to get the ball up and back down quickly. Clearly there are exceptions to the rule, but what I'm speaking about specifically would be the rally ball, where you're trying to control the point from the back of the court and create a short ball for yourself that you can attack, push your opponent back. That's the ball that we're talking about, that as far as this myth of the wrist. So what we want to show very quickly is what is widely believed and even taught out there, is that the pros are coming into the ball as they take their racket back and the racket lowers into position and they release back in, and they come up here to impact, that they're going to rotate their hand independent of their body, like flip their hand up the back of the ball. Okay? Couple of things. First of all, it's a glancing blow. There's no power on that shot. Even if you hit it over the net, there's not much there, and a good player is just going to take advantage of that, punish it in the corner, come in and take advantage of the point or take control of the point. The second thing is that you're going to have a lot of mishits. You're going to be on the bottom of the frame, hit it on the top of the frame. Every once in a while you might hit it in the middle. So this is what does not happen. It's very deceiving and hard to discern exactly what's taking place at real speeds. You have to look at it at super slow motion, and you have to have some frames of reference. So let me kind of show you what what does happen. When the pros take the racket back, they all have the hip and shoulder rotation that we've seen. They keep the left hand on the racket. There's not a pro in the world that doesn't do this. Now, once they get to this point, they release their left hand out and they lower the racket down into position. Okay? As they start to uncoil their body, the racket seeks this laid back position. And as they come back to impact, they make contact with the ball, you're going to see that they travel out through the ball another 8 or 10 inches. So the path of their racket is from the lower position to impact to a higher position. Okay, that little move right there. Now keep in mind, they're doing this at 100 miles an hour. So that release of that racket is going to look more abrupt, perhaps, and it's going to be harder to discern that they're not flipping their wrist because it's happening so quickly. But if you look at it very, very carefully, you're going to see that they're traveling out through the ball from a lower position to a slightly higher position and rotating. Their arm and wrist is rotating, but not nearly as much as we think. Okay? What is imparting the spin is the fact that they are starting from a position that's at least this relationship to the ball, sometimes even more so. So they're below the level of the ball, they're coming up into the ball and making contact here, and then after contact, you watch any pro in the world, their racket is traveling out towards their target. Now, their arm is not straightening out unless they have unless they're hitting with a straight arm. Nadal hits with a straight arm, Federer hits with a straight arm, Verdasco, Dimitrov, there's several of them that hit with a straight arm. But even those guys, if you look at impact, which is here, with a straight arm, after impact, you're going to see that their racket is still here. It's rotated slightly, but it has traveled towards the target, traveled out towards the target, and then it releases and comes around and finishes right here. Now, when we see that in real time, we're going to swear that they've really ripped their hand over and their wrist over the ball, but they don't. And this is the big misconception. If you want to hit your forehand with more pace, more depth, more weight of shot, you got to get away from this idea here. Rotating your wrist independent of your arm up the back of the ball. And you hear it all the time, brush the back of the ball. Now, am I advocating that the pros don't hit from a low position to a higher position? Of course not. They do, and that's what imparts the spin times the velocity or racket acceleration. So even though that's not as violent as we may think, it still puts plenty of spin on the ball and plenty of depth and also margin for error over the net because of the racket acceleration. You got to remember the racket's traveling at 100 miles an hour or more in most cases. So this is what it's going to look like in super slow motion. When they take the racket back, they come to here, and they have different variations of backswing. We won't go over that, right? Left hand goes out. Every pro in the world, they lower the racket down here like this. Releases back. This is all super slow motion, obviously. And as I come into impact, I'm going from a lower position to a higher position, and I'm making contact with the ball, and I'm continuing out another 8 or 10 inches towards my target. My wrist and arm are rotating. They are rotating, don't get me wrong, but I'm hitting out towards my target. And then once the ball is long gone, remember at this stage, the ball's gone. Now you're gonna see them release and rotate over and finish. Even a player like Gael Monfils, which is probably considered one of the loosest and wristiest forehands in the world, it's very deceiving. If you watch him in super slow motion, this is what you're going to see. He comes in, he releases back, he comes into the ball, and he goes just like this. Right out through the level of the ball from a lower position to higher position. His wrist is rotating, his arm is rotating as a unit, and then he goes boom and finishes right here. So in faster motion, right? And it looks like I'm flipping my arm and flipping my wrist, but I'm not. I am rotating it. Don't get me wrong, I am rotating it. So again, this is further clarification, hopefully, of this wrist and arm rotation that does happen, and the wrist flick or snap or flip up the back of the ball, that unless you're at the net, it just simply doesn't happen at the pro level. And this is one of the biggest reasons, in my opinion, why club players and recreational players and even some advanced players don't have the weight of shot that they see the pros have. And this is the reason why. This is a great deception and a misunderstanding, in my opinion, out there. Hopefully this is going to be helpful for you. Keep in mind what you want to think about here. Doesn't matter how, you take the racket back. There's different variations. Some people, just drop it here and come into the ball. Some lay it down and release back. Again, you're going to see variations in that regard. But from this position, as you can see, I'm below the level of the ball. I'm rotating up to impact. That's the contact point. And my arm and wrist continue to rotate slightly as I'm going out through the ball. And that imparts the spin. And then I'm just rotating over and finishing. So again, even on a high ball, if I'm coming in here, I'm going to come in. You watch any pro in the world, they're going to come in, the racket squares up at impact, and you're going to see the racket traveling this way. Okay? Now, here's the last frame of reference that I want you to be able to use. Right after impact, if you take a still shot of the pros, or if you're watching video, you just hit the pause button, if they did, in fact, rotate their wrist like this up the back of the ball, and I'm going to do this from behind, their racket would be up here after impact. It would be up here. And if you look, you will see very, very clearly, even on Djokovic, you know, he lays it back here, he comes in and he makes contact here, right? There is wrist and arm rotation. Please don't get me wrong. There is wrist and arm rotation, but it's more wrist and arm together with a nice loose arm, relaxed grip, and squeeze enough at impact to maintain racket control. So again, hopefully this is going to be helpful. How the spin is imparted is because you got to remember these guys are coming in with a relationship to the ball like this, okay, in many cases. So when they come in from that low of a position to a higher position and continue out through the ball to a higher position, that's imparting plenty of spin when you multiply it by 100 mile an hour racket head speed or racket acceleration. So hopefully this is going to be helpful for you in terms of further clarification. I don't want you to hear me say there isn't wrist and arm rotation in the forehand. Absolutely there is, and the wrist and arm are working more as a unit and working together if you'll watch the top pros. But I also want you to understand that a lot of this that we see, okay, if I take a full swing, boom, and I hear, boom, that is wrist and arm rotation from a low position to a high position to impart the spin, but it's not this. It's not a wrist flick or a wrist flip over the top like this or a vertical swing. Hopefully that's going to be helpful for you in terms of further clarification. If you like this video, please click the link below. Leave, you like the video, but leave any comments, leave any questions. That's how we're going to learn. I love to hear your comments. I've gotten great comments from all over the world. I want to hear them. Also, I want to bring attention to the video analysis portion of our website, insighttennis.com. A lot of times I think people think we're going to put their videos out there, and they're probably a bit insecure about that. We will absolutely respect your privacy. We'll absolutely not put your videos out if you don't want us to do that. But we would love to hear from you. We'd love to see your videos and see if we can take a look at your biomechanics and help you out with your game. Again, like the video if you like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you for your time, and we'll see you out there on the court.